I'm solely convinced that you damn near need a PhD to understand the level of insanity that is taking place within the woke mind. Like, ain't no way you can just continue to track the logic because there seems to really be no logic, right? I mean, there were ideas such as systemic racism. Okay, I can understand that one. And then critical race theory comes in. And then all of a sudden you have the gender ideology or gender studies. Okay, we're studying gender, right? Male, female. No, 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 no. We're studying the fact that there is a spectrum of multiple different genders. And then it starts to get a little more confusing, and then you start getting into ideas such as anti-racism. Okay, I can get down with anti-racism. Well, technically, every white person is a racist. Even a baby, an infant white person, is born with inherent. Wait a minute, born? Now, as far as what I've experienced, a baby is born with no ideology at all. They can't tell the difference between Peter and Paul. I mean, the baby is just babying. Right? So now all of them are racist. If they lack melanin, they just happen to be racist, huh? Well, yes, technically. And also, the world is broken up into two groups, oppressed and oppressor, which means that if you are obese, you are oppressed. Wait a minute. How did eating too many damn fries end up becoming oppression? That sounds to some like a blessing, right? You live in a country where you can afford to get to 600 pounds. You are the same weight as a family of six, in some other third world developing nation. You as one individual were able to pack on as much weight as six people. And you are telling me that that is a sign of oppression. Well, yes, it's systemic racism because black bodies are. Wait a minute. So when I'm trying to really keep track of this entire woke idiocracy, there are some times when I come across things like what we're about to get into right now, where I genuinely have to just sit there and focus, use all my mental faculties to just become completely mentally ill myself in order to understand them. There's no way. I have to take every brain cell and focus it in to the point where they just all evaporate, gone, so I can understand what the hell they're talking about. Now, I did a video not too long ago with not a TED Talk, I guess it's TEDx. They were trying to correct me and saying, that's not TED Talk, that's just TED, but not that TED. And this chick was talking about decolonializing yourself as an individual, whatever the hell that means. I guess that's just like a fancy way of saying, unwhite yourself, right? Un-European yourself, which to me is, I mean, if it's advantageous to you, then go ahead, stop speaking the English language. Okay, go ahead and do that. Take away every single technological advantage that you now have based upon this Western civilization. So you can go ahead and, get yourself back to square one and I guess build it from there. You can pretty much just decolonize yourself completely, get back to whatever original tribal forest dwelling experience that you had before the white man, right, came into existence. So when I ran into this video, it reminded me a lot of that video, which as far as it didn't make a lot of sense, but it was still kind of hilarious to see these people try to make sense of this stuff. So today we're just here for a good time, not a long time, maybe a long time, but definitely a good time. And this is a video that was shared by Libs of TikTok. Shout out to Libs of TikTok. Shout out to the fact that TikTok is still in existence. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm for TikTok staying around, right? Because I'm biased, right? TikTok has taken very good care of me and vice versa. Okay, TikTok? I'll make sure that I pull up with that good, and y'all make sure to compensate accordingly. But that being said, let's get into this video, try to make sense of it, and then we will unpack as we go forward. Make sure to get yourself a little sippy sip, preferably water. Let's get into it.
The white gaze or the white man's gaze.
Mind you, when he says white gaze, he's not referring to the alphabet people. He means the eye contact, right? Just to clarify for anybody out there, it's not the gaze, right? It's the gaze, right? So yeah, there's that.
The white gaze or the white man's gaze, the white man sitting on her shoulder, telling her not to write those things.
Oh, sorry, more context. This is what our money has been going to. This is taxpayer dollars. in the Department of Education. This is what essentially we have been paying for. There are grants totaling up to $222 million for consultants who are teaching stuff like this to our educators, right? 220, and this is just a little fractal of the money. There's multis of billions of dollars that goes into the Department of Education every single year. Never really sees the campuses, but it does see its way into people like this pocket. So if you want a cool hustle and you have no sense of morality, this is a very good place to start and finish. You'll get paid a lot of money for doing stuff like this. Maybe even upwards to like 20,000 a Zoom call for an hour, like Ibrahim Kendi with this anti-rape.
We are, I'll just be bold and claim, undeniably sitting in systems that are meant to assimilate us. The whole founding of formal education in these territories was meant to erase indigeneity, scrubbed clean to participate in a settler society. Why bring that up now? Well, we still live in a settler colonial reality. Flick that white man off your shoulder. And it's not about individual white people, individual white men. It's about the settler colonial reality and the settler patriarchy that pushes us to move and behave in certain ways. That what if that wasn't there? Because I realized once you flick the settler gaze, the person holding that settler gaze off your shoulder, who takes the place?
Okay, so let me start here. Let's just assume that this man has zero blood outside of whatever native tribe to these lands, right? Since we love to, essentially kind of point to the thing of, well, they're the indigenous peoples. Who is the indigenous peoples? Okay, let's say that it was the Apaches. Let's just use that example. Let's say he's 100% Apache, right? Jump on it, jump on. In order for him to completely eradicate the settler within himself, right, which is just saying the white man, right, which is interesting to me because I'm like, which white man, right? If you go into Portugal, if you go into Spain, if you go into they wouldn't consider themselves white. They just consider themselves whatever nationality that is. And before that, they consider themselves maybe parts of whatever tribal affiliation they had, right? They had groupings. So they weren't looking at themselves and saying, I am a white man, and I see myself as the same as him. These were warring people. They were fighting over a lot of the very same things. So we'll just, push that to the side. So let's say this dude is 100% Apache. Then I would say, okay, in order for you to get rid of the colonizer from within, you would have to completely eradicate every single thing that you are at this very moment. So your language goes, your clothing goes, your customs and your ways go, etc. And now you have to adopt only those things that the Apaches did. So let's get you back in the middle of, the forest somewhere in Ohio, right? Let's get you back in the dense forestry with no resource and no tool besides, because you didn't have horses yet. Horses hadn't been brought over from, the Western world, the evil settler. You didn't have the horse, so you are likely walking on foot, which I'm sure would be very good for you because, I'm sure that your original people couldn't have gotten that big walking that much or running that much. So let's get you back there. So now you're back in shape. Well, I guess it's benefited you already. And then, of course, we have, such things as the tools that you're using. So let's get rid of, your pyong, because I was a white man who brought that over, evil white guy. And so your hunting is going to happen basically between bows and arrows, axes, hatchets, things of that nature, right? Let's give you some of those original Apache tools because there's no settler influence, remember? It's just like how you started without anybody ever infiltrating. It's not like, your people got there because of other people that came before you. No. You just dropped there just by yourself, right? There was no influence from the settler. So now you're also foraging for food, hunting for yourself. So let's get you back there, right? So that means no more McDonald's trips, no more Wendy's, no more snacks and desserts. All of that is off the table completely because all the Western stuff, all of that is gone. So again, it definitely helped you with your BMI, like, your body composition, right? Fat to muscle ratio definitely helped there. It definitely helped you as far as maybe, the contraction of certain autoimmune chronic ailments, lifestyle borne diseases. So that's a beautiful thing, right? That's definitely a win. Most would at least say it's a win, but you're still having to strip those away. So if we're going to take away, the colonial aspects, right? Because the colonizer was, he was just such an evil man who came here and just destroyed everybody. There was no war. Oh, wait. No, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. No, your people were actually in war with the other tribes. Okay. So reality, not the fiction. Okay, reality. So you're now having to war with the people around you for resources. That sounds quite Western, doesn't it? Oh, also, if you do win the war, then there are going to be casualties of war, and then there are also going to be servants, possible slaves from such wars. Interesting. So, I mean, yeah, that sounds pretty damn Western, actually. That's interesting. Okay, so I guess decolonizing yourself is just going to lead you back to a place where you are essentially living quite primitively, right? The same thing you're kind of accusing the white man. It's not the specific white man, because that's the argument, right? It's not the specific white man. It's the concept of whiteness. What is the concept of whiteness then? What is the concept? What is it? Is it war? Because people have been doing that since the beginning of time, right? Is it slavery? Because humans have been doing that since the beginning of time, and it's still going on around the world. The evil that is slavery still exists on most continents. It just so happens to be that in the Western world, it was eradicated in a very clear and distinct way, which my brother-in-law actually told me this. He put me on game. He said, the reason why there was the wars that were taking place, the civil war that took place in the United States, why there was such an adamant fight towards preserving the system is also because they could no longer ship new slaves into the Americas because the trade had been cut off. So I guess what you're looking to cut yourself away from are the advances in technology, the conveniences that allow you to be morbidly obese, essentially the customs and ways that have allowed you to have a longer lifespan, the eradication of the system of slavery, and horses, which then became cars, which I guess goes back into technology, right? So yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with the decolonizing. As far as me, I'm perfectly fine with the way things rolled out, and we continue to improve and iterate. But as far as, the world that I'm living in, yeah, a lot of this is pretty damn dope, I know we like to hate on the white man. He just ruined everything. But, if we look at the reality, there's some pretty dope stuff that was done. There's some dope stuff that was done by everybody. That's my God on this point, all jokes aside, is we've all always had something to contribute to the ecosystem. And, somebody left me a comment a while back. They said, any society that does not borrow from one another ends up failing. Right? If you can't iterate, if you can't advance, if you can't build on what you already have in something that serves your society, if I don't trade my salt for gold, right? And instead I view you as my enemy and I'm not going to trade with you at all, I'm not going to engage in a free market, then I am likely going to find myself at a deficit somewhere. The beauty of humanity, the human race, because it's the only race that actually exists, the beauty of the human race is that we have the ability to collaborate. We also have the option to compete or to essentially destroy one another. But I would choose a collaborative effort. And that's what took place at a certain point when individuals realized, we're better working together than we are separated. And that's still one of the biggest problems back in Africa, where you have tribalism that has consumed the mentality of the people and they can't see each other as partners. Right? The moment you start to come together and genuinely collaborate, not so you can be against this one and this one, in an adversarial way, but so you can become, supreme within your own right. Just like at a human to human or person to person level, I'm not looking to be, I don't need to be better than you, right? I mean, there might be some healthy competition in order for me to improve myself, but I'm not looking at you as a barrier to my success. I will create my own success with my own foundational, principles, values, etc. And you do your thing. And again, the best is always going to rise to the top. If I'm creating superior products, superior services, if I'm creating, an economy that is robust, then I'm going to succeed off of that. And that's what we are living in. We're living in essentially who won? Who won? The ones who are currently in the positions of power, as far as globally, and the ones who have remained in those places, is based upon who had the best working system. I know we don't like to get there. That's why the communism and socialism thing, if you see it in practice, it doesn't last very long, right? You had empires that lasted thousands of years. The Egyptian Empire, right? You had empires such as the Greek, the Roman, the Persian, powerful empires. And at some point, they shrunk, they fell. Because I guess either they couldn't sustain, there was something happening from within, there was a decay. There are people who know these subjects far better than I ever will, right, historically. But the reality is the best system is always going to win. That's why China's struggling. And, they essentially built themselves up only because they had to forcibly create free market zones. They want to be communist. They want to hold a totalitarian view of society, but they know that in order for them to grow economically, they need to introduce capitalist ideals. So they create zones that are known as these, free market zones. It's the only way they could survive, let alone thrive. So, yeah, but what do I know, Department of so-called Education, if you want to put that money to good use, instead of giving it to this guy, you could literally use it as toilet paper. It would be infinitely, or you could use it as fodder for your fire. Infinitely more resourceful to do one of those two things than to give it to this nonsense.
I used to be afraid of the dark, a place unknown like a heart in their heart. I used to see my life in the bar. Now the kids unchained, every shackle is lost. 2 steps in the moonlight, 2 step in the daytime. You just know when it feel right. You got a feeling the time's not. See you through those shades that I just threw on. Through my lenses, you just can't do no wrong. I fell in love with myself again. I fell in love with myself. I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light. You can see the life in him illuminate the night. I know the time is taking. A 3, 6, 5, that's a full rotation. I see you looking up, you know them constellations. Constantly gazing like house of praises, you get to praising. They see your light shine, that's why they so frustrated. Even the sofa in Nova Scotia will win the bagels. I couldn't get them ease on the grease, why they burning up. Money growing trees,